vote, though. You may have heard there was a little girl, and she wanted $100, and she said she'd do good things with it. And so she wrote a letter. She said, "Dear God, I'd like $100. The postmaster got it, and he said, "Well, I don't know what to do with it." So he sent it to the president. And the president said, "Oh, well, that's cute." And he said to his secretary, "Send the little girl $5. She'll appreciate that." So the little girl got it, and it was like $5, but her parents told her always write a thank you. And so she did. She said, "Dear God, thanks for the $5, but next time don't send it through Washington. They stole 95% of it." We are now in the midst of an election that pits one party against another. But I often tell people political parties are empty vessels unless we imbue them with values. Republicans must first decide and clearly explain who we are before we can ask to take charge of the country. Today we are here to talk about what we believe those values should be. I'm a Christian, a husband and a father. I'm faithful to my wife and my family. I try to be good at all those things, though of course we all fall short of perfection in our lives. I try to adhere to the tenets of God's Word in the New Testament. I take seriously my oath to defend the Constitution. And I try to fight for truth and my values regardless of the political outcome, regardless of how popular or unpopular they may be. Dostoevsky wrote that I did not arrive at my Hosanna through childlike faith, but through a fiery furnace of doubt. My faith has never been easy for me, never been easy to talk about, and never been without obstacles. I do not and cannot wear my religion on my sleeve. I am a Christian, but not always a good one. I'm not completely free of doubts. I struggle to understand man's inhumanity to man. I struggle to understand the horrible tragedies that war inflicts on our young men and women. And I've always had trouble grappling with the tragedies that I've encountered in medicine. As a medical student and as a physician, I struggled and struggle with inexplicable disease, terminal tumors in children, when bad things happen to good people, when bad things happen to innocent people. When Mrs. Jones presents with pancreatic cancer, I don't always know what to say or what to think. You can see it in her eyes. She knows what the diagnosis ultimately means. How do you explain something so unjust and inexplicable to her? My first patient as a medical student on the surgical service was a beautiful young woman who unfortunately presented with metastatic melanoma to her ovaries. She didn't die during my time caring for her, but I knew enough to know that her time was limited. And I struggled to understand her tragedy and how tragedy could occur in a world that has purpose and design. Like most doctors, or like most people really, I struggle with sometimes caring too much and sometimes caring too little. I struggle to understand how evil individuals sometimes reap earthly rewards and saintly heroes are martyred by their fellow man. When I read All Quiet on the Western Front, I recoiled at the horror of war. When I read of the merciless and relentless charges from one trench to another and the utter carnage, I wondered, whose grand design is this? When I read Silent Night, the story of the Christmas Eve armistice, I marveled at men who found goodness so profound that it overcame hatred. I was awestruck by soldiers who put down their arms to sing Christmas carols with the enemy and came out of their trenches to play soccer and exchange small gifts. I was amazed at men who were so transformed by the moment that they were left unable to fight and had to be transferred away from the front lines. This is from World War I. I realized, though, that the Christmas armistice was an anomaly and that millions died in World War I and World War II and all the 20th century wars, despite the fact that few, if any, of the soldiers involved knew enough of their foe to want to kill them or befriend them. I'm not a pacifist, but I do think it unacceptable not to hate war. I am dismissive of those who champion war as sport and show no reluctance to engage in war. Any leader who shows glee or eagerness for war should not be leading any nation. I believe truly great leaders are reluctant to go to war and try mightily to avoid war. Though I detest violence, I could kill someone who injured or threatened my family. Though I hate war, I could commit a nation to war, but only reluctantly and constitutionally and after great deliberation. I believe that though some would find this a contradiction in terms, that there is such a thing as a Christian or just theory of war, that a just war is a war of self-defense. At the same time, I am conflicted. I don't believe Jesus would have killed anyone or condoned killing, perhaps not even in self-defense. I'm conflicted. The course